should be listening to the CISO Series podcast. Go.
CISOs. Duh. It's a simple answer.
It's time to begin the CISO Series podcast.
Welcome to the CISO Series podcast. My name is David Spark. I am the producer of the CISO Series, and joining as a guest co-host, actually he's a regular co-host, but he's guest co-hosting over here on CISO Series podcast. You can normally hear him on Defense in Depth. It is the senior EVP and CISO for Frostbank, Edward Contreras, also known as Eddie Contreras. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us.
David, thank you for having me back yet again.
We are available at the CISOseries.com site where you can see all our wonderful programming. We have 4 other shows in our network. Please go check them out. Our sponsor for today's episode, one of our absolute favorites, it is ThreatLocker. Meet the world's leading zero trust platform. Allow what you need. Block everything else by default, including ransomware and rogue code. We will be giving you latest updates from ThreatLocker a little bit later in the show. But first, Eddie, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the show before, and I'm going to apologize if I have to our audience, but I did have one acting gig many years ago on a dramatization for the Apollo 13 mission. Have you done any acting yourself, Eddie?
David, I have not, but now I have a feeling I will be on the second, third, or maybe fourth page of Google to find this video now, because now I'm very curious.
It's not hard to find. I will provide a link to it. So here's the story. I had friends who worked for a production company who worked on a Discovery Channel show called Man, Moment, Machine, which told specific events in history, and they did dramatizations of it. So they had photos of everybody who worked on the Apollo 13 mission, and it just so happens that I am a dead ringer for the chief engineer, Cy Liebergott, on that mission. They're looking at photos, and my friends are looking at it who work for the production company, goes, this guy looks just like David Spark. You think David Spark would do the dramatization? Because I don't know, ask him. So I did do it. I got paid for 1 day's work. I was one of the highest paid people there. Eddie, guess how much I made being one of the highest paid people there?
I'm going to say this is the double-digit area. I'm thinking $50 might be the soft spot.
You were very close, actually. Those were the lowest paid people. I got $150 for doing this piece.
Oh, triple digit.
And I appear for about 45 seconds in the program. I created a sort of a cut of just my 45 seconds of appearing in it. And I will provide the link to it where people can see me doing the dramatization of Cy Liebergott for the Apollo 13 mission. Now, I'm going to bring in our guest right now, who I don't know if he knew this whole story about this. He has been a frequent guest on our show, a frequent sponsor guest, because it's from ThreatLocker. We adore having him on. He's quite entertaining. The Chief Product Officer, Rob Allen. Rob, did you know about this? Had I ever told you this story?
I did not, but while you were explaining it, I have been furiously searching David Spark IMDb.
That is me, but I don't think the Apollo 13 mission ever made it to that.
But it should.
I guess it should.
I mean, you got paid $150 for it.
Yes, I did.
You do know we did an interview and had a bunch of stuff with Gene Kranz, the great Gene Kranz of Apollo 13 and many other Apollo missions.
Well, I'm sure if I met Gene would look at me and go, hey, Cy Liebergott, good to see you.
You might get the invite for the next Artemis launching.
So I'd imagine that Cy Liebergott...
Probably no longer with us.
Well, either that or he is equally 94, 95 years old.
Yes.
So I don't think he's going to look like you now, David.
Probably. That's the good point.
Could be wrong. Maybe he's got really good genes. I don't know.
I look a very young, healthy 94.
You do look a very young, healthy 94. I will give you that.
What's a CISO to do?
Quote, as long as a CISO stands in front of the runaway train, no one is going to stop it, end quote. Now that's our own Andy Ellis in CyberSec Media. He was in a piece there who's arguing about the vuln-apocalypse. AI discovered vulnerabilities arriving faster than CVEs can even catalog them isn't the CISO's problem to fix, he says. Engineering writes the code, ships the dependencies, and ignores the maintenance. Security teams stepped into that gap years ago and now consume their energy cataloging defects they can't patch. I think Andy's right that ownership belongs to the CIO, CTO, and head of engineering, but the CISO is still the steward of security for the entire business. So, Eddie, I'm going to start with you. How do we hand vulnerability management to engineering and others without landing it as an abdication or a commandment? Like, how does that happen?
I think one of the interesting ways to deal with this is terminology and responsibilities. You have to understand who's accountable versus who's responsible. And if you can unpack that statement, you can get to a really nice landing zone. I'm going to keep doing this, lunar stuff now. Holding somebody accountable for the responsibility, it's vital to that transition. And you can do that without actually having to go out there and do all the patching. What type of oversight? How are you reporting it? Who are you reporting it to? How much are they involved in that whole conversation before it gets reported? I think there's a lot of conversations that typically have to be had with the CTO, the CIO, or whoever is responsible for actually applying the patches. Here's what I'm going to report. Here's who's going to hear the report. Here's how much time you have to make sure that the report is favorable. And so if you have that process in place, you can really start to unpack, who's accountable versus responsible and rightfully sit in their seat where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if the person identifying the security vulnerabilities, the risks, if they can distribute that equally amongst the developers, team A, you work on product A, team B, you work on product team, everybody gets their own view of the risk. Then it's up to them to figure out, now that I have this view, how far off am I from actually remediating a portion of these, all of these, or I can't do them this month. And I think if you can get a report that is customized to the development team, there's more visibility and there's less I have to boil the ocean and I just have to focus on my one product. And then at that point, I think what can happen is now all of a sudden, even though you might do a little bit more work up front to disseminate these unique reports to the unique teams, now everybody has their own approach to solving these vulnerabilities versus here's a spray it for everybody and figure out where you sit in that conversation. I think that's a little hard to unpack because then you can't do it all, but you can do some, and who can do the most and where are we most exposed to. But it does take a little work up front to be able to get there.
Rob, now I want your take here about the vulnpocalypse. What does this mean? And to specifically speak to people who are not cybersecurity professionals here, what does this mean?
What it means, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I couldn't do it anywhere near as well as you just did, David, but what it means for the average person, and not even the average person, the average business, the average organization, the average CISO, is that they need to be cognizant that the software that they use every single day is full of holes. And those holes...
And a lot more than we thought before.
Well, the holes are going to be found quicker than they ever were in the past. They're going to be linked together faster than they ever were in the past. They're going to be more of them than were ever known of previously. So you have to act accordingly. You have to assume that those vulnerabilities exist and act accordingly. And I think, again, patching is part of the solution, but patching is not going to be a sustainable strategy for most organizations because the fact of the matter is, in a lot of cases, patches won't exist. You may be using software that hasn't been updated in 5 years. You may be using software that is from businesses that don't exist anymore. And even the businesses who do exist, who are trying their hardest to update their software to fix these vulnerabilities, they won't be able to do it as fast as the vulnerabilities are being discovered. So, as I said, assume that those holes exist and act accordingly is a best piece of advice I can give.
What about this AI security challenge?
Quote, the risk is not simply that it exists. The risk is that it exists without oversight, end quote. Nick Callisto argued on CIO.com that banning shadow AI is a fantasy. The real move is sanctioned tools, clear guidelines, and visibility into what employees are already doing. Fair enough. But employees are ultimately going to use tools that help them get their job done. Just telling people the risks is a lost cause because nobody using AI thinks they're the shadow AI problem. That is true. So, I'm going to start with you, Rob, on this. How do we make the danger visible enough that employees self-correct rather than hoping they'll correct because of some policy? What's the one demo, the leak, or the aha moment that would land harder than another acceptable use policy? Because we hear that all the time and we know nobody reads that. What's your take? What do you think, Rob?
Well, I got to either agree or disagree with the opinion about sanction tools, clear guidelines, visibility into what people are doing.
Take it from that angle, sure.
Yeah, no, none of that works.
Right.
None of that works. And I can speak from personal experience from our own organization that none of that works. Because you can tell people that they shouldn't be using tools other than tool X, and you can be absolutely guaranteed that they're going to be using tools Y, Z, and whatever else they feel they need to get their job done. But again, visibility, yes, it will help because it will identify the problems. But realistically, it comes back to control. I mean, like, for example, internally, we have a limited number of people that are allowed to use a limited number of tools. And we only allow those limited number of people to use those limited number of tools. And if somebody else wants access, they need to request it. It needs to be evaluated. It needs to be approved. And then they need to be given access. So just because Shadow IT can exist doesn't mean that Shadow IT has to exist. So fundamentally, it means going to a website. It means running an application like Claude or Anti-Gravity or whatever the case may be. And again, coming back to the threat locker message, which is if you block all of those things from being able to run, you don't have a Shadow IT problem. If you stop people from going to chatgpt.com, they can't go to chatgpt.com. They can't upload data. They can't do things they shouldn't do. So it comes back to control.
So you make a good argument that don't even bother with the aha moment.
I don't think an aha moment is necessary.
It's not necessary. You don't even need to go down that road even at all. Just literally create the guardrails so they literally can't hurt themselves, kind of a thing.
Correct. That is exactly what we're talking about, is setting guardrails and saying, look, those who should use tools should be able to use tools, albeit with restrictions. So, I want Rob to be able to use Claude Code, but I don't want Rob's Claude Code to be able to access my finance share, or my director share, or whatever the case may be. So it's allowing these things to run, but allowing them to run safely. But as I said, equally allowing people or those who should have access to certain websites or categories of websites. I mean, you may have certain people that you want to have access to all LLMs or all AI tools, but the vast majority of a lot of organizations, probably they don't. I mean, another really simple one. I mean, we started internally by basically saying to everybody, right, you can use Microsoft Copilot 365. So not the free Copilot, you can use the paid Copilot. And very quickly we realized through visibility, and coming back to the point about visibility, that lots of people were going to ChatGPT anyway. Even though they had an approved tool, they had a guideline tool, they just weren't using it. So then it comes back to saying, well, look, if you want it, somebody has to approve it, and we will create a policy to allow you to use it. And if not, you just can't.
All right. Eddie, I take this to you. So Rob makes a good argument that the question itself, we don't even need to answer it. It's not even necessary. So your take, should we try to create aha moments so people self-correct, or should we just create an environment where we just force them to go down a certain road, and if they want to do something different, they need to make the request and it goes through the procedures as appropriate? What do you think?
And it's not a new challenge or problem, right? We've had Shadow IT for a while. Now we have Shadow AI.
Right.
And solving either one of those challenges, it's not that intuitive and it's not that challenging either. The problem that these shadow, pick your category, exist is how friction filled is the control that you've given them? Do they have to go through like a true process risk and control inventory process? They have to catalog all their use statements. So they have to get every single business case approved. I mean, the more tedious and the more challenging you make it, the more prevalent shadow anything will be there. And so you have to be able to build something that the business kind of likes and they're not pushed off, and security is kind of okay with, and it's not just fully making them mad, right? There's that give and take, right? No one's going to walk away from this conversation saying, I got everything that I need. Because if security gets everything they need, you're going to have shadow departments. If the business gets everything they need, you're not going to have security. And so you have to figure out that balance. And I think that's one of the challenges here is, as soon as you have a really good policy in place, someone needs an exception. I mean, that is the rule. There's always an exception to the rule. And so, well, I have a developer. They're going to use the approved Claude 4.6. Yeah, but I need something from the 4.5 variant. And so I'm going to roll back a little bit and use the older variant. Well, that's not approved. Well, let's get it approved, right? And so I think that's the dilemma that we see ourselves in is sometimes it's so complicated or overly complicated, we're forcing these shadow departments to exist.
Cybersecurity loves cycles. For a while, it was antivirus, then EDR, then XDR, then more telemetry, more dashboards, more data, and every step of the way, we got better at seeing attacks. But attackers got better too. Today, many of the most successful attacks use trusted tools, valid credentials, approved applications. Nothing looks obviously malicious. So here's the question security leaders are starting to ask. How have we spent so much time focusing on detection that we've forgotten about control? At ThreatLocker, they've always believed prevention matters. Not because detection isn't valuable, but because seeing an attack and stopping an attack are two very different things. That's why ThreatLocker is proud to support the CISO series, and we love them for it, a place where security leaders challenge assumptions, question industry trends, and have the conversations that move cybersecurity forward. Because the future of cybersecurity won't be defined by who has the most alerts, it will be defined by who has the most control. Check out ThreatLocker at threatlocker.com/CISO. And do me a favor, add the /CISO in at the end. It's the easiest way to let ThreatLocker know that you learned about them from the CISO series.
It's time to play What's Worse?
Rob, you are very familiar with this game.
Yes, I am.
He is. I will make Eddie answer first. These scenarios come in from our audience, and this is from a frequent contributor who actually has a new job now. In fact, he's contributed, I think, through 3 or 4 different jobs. I think this is his 4th different company, I believe he's been with since he's been contributing to us. We adore him. He's now with Sierra. It is Neil Saltman. And here are the 2 scenarios. I'm going to have Eddie answer first here. What's worse, a third party who completed a job and you're now finding out they had been exfiltrating data for months they should have never had access to? Or finding out your backups have been compromised by an insider who had been stealing credentials but has since left the company. So just to summarize quickly, the both are gone, so you have to assess the damage and see if there's any recourse that can be taken while trying to recover. So they're both kind of doing similar levels of damage, but the recovery is going to be a different process. Eddie, what's worse?
Wow. Okay. So I have to choose one. And if I'm thinking in one scenario, I know the vendor that I have to work with to solve my problem. In the other scenario, I have no idea where my problem exists, and I have to find that person or thing or entity and solve it with them. So I think if that's the major difference between the two, I'm going to go with the second.
Is worse the employee leaving?
That I think is the worst. It's an administrator who had trusted access. We assume they could touch anything they wanted, and we know they did, and we have no idea what they did with it. And so is it going to end up on the dark web, on a resale market? Is it going to be extortion? Who knows where the scenarios land? I think on the first scenario, at least I know my participant in the story, and this one you don't, right? The second one I think is, oh man, they could be anywhere doing anything, and they could have done it for a really long time.
I argue that should be a different case, but Rob, I want your take on it. Which scenario do you think is worse here?
I'm slightly confused by the second scenario.
The second scenario is just somebody
poisoned backups.
Well, no. So find out your backups have been compromised by an insider.
Compromised?
Compromised, yes. Has been stealing credentials, but has since left the company.
I mean, compromised can mean many different things. I mean, the first one very much had the word exfiltrated in it.
Yeah.
And data being exfiltrated is obviously not a bad thing.
They have been compromised insiders have been stealing credentials.
But stealing credentials could also be extremely problematic as well, because as Eddie said, how big is the problem? You don't really know how big the problem is. So
yeah, those credentials could have been sold and who knows where they are.
Correct. So I think I would given that context, I think I would very much lean towards Eddie's perspective, which is the second is very definitely worse.
But hold it, there's a similar problem with the first scenario. It says they had been exfiltrating data for months. So the third party completed the job. They've been taking data out. Similarly, like in the second scenario, you don't know where that data's gone.
This is true, but the likelihood is, as Eddie said, it is a third party. It's an organization. It's
Right.
something you can potentially work with. It's something that you can sue, as opposed to an individual with lots of credentials, which, as you correctly pointed out, could well be for sale on the dark web at this point, and the problem could be just much bigger. I don't know. I as I said, my instinct is I'd probably, like, both are bad, but I probably prefer the first than the second.
Your take on what I said, Eddie, about the exfiltration of data?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a good spot to be in either way, right? But how many vendors do you give carte blanche access to everything? Normally, they're going to be restricted to a thing that they're working on, where that admin, they probably could give themselves access to anything. So yeah, for me, I think the blast radius of the vendor is more manageable than it would be with that insider threat, where now all of a sudden you have to figure out what that radius is. And that could be those could be long nights, right? Those could be a long night to a lot of different teams.
Mm-hmm.
Please, enough. No, more.
All right, here's one I'm going to throw out at you all. Macs are less secure than Windows. What have you heard enough about this? It's a claim rarely made. And what do you want to hear more about this? So what do you think about that claim in general, Eddie? And have you heard anything about it? And what would you like to hear more about it?
So I'm so excited to hear Rob's position, because I'm going to take a position on purpose now to hopefully energize him. Macs are not less secure than Windows. I'm throwing that statement out there.
Oh, I think I've heard that one before.
And here's why I'm saying that. And I'm watching Rob's face. It's less about what's available and what's on the landscape than how you manage your environment. And if you have an army of people focusing on Windows and one person on Macs, if you have an army of people on Macs and one person on Windows, you're probably going to focus a little bit differently based on how you have that deployed. But I'm looking at this less from what's available from the vendor and what's available from the ecosystem. And I'm looking at more as, how am I managing within my environment? If the Macs are less secure, have I given them the equal access that a Windows device has? Do I treat them the same as a Windows device, or am I treating them a little bit differently? So it's really less about vendor availability than it is about how I'm managing that vendor itself. So I would say they're on par with each other, and Macs are not the bad guy here.
All right. Rob, what's your take on this?
So I'm not as triggered as I thought I was going to be. And Eddie, they're just not. They're just not less secure than Windows. They are infinitely more secure than Windows. And that is a hill that I'm prepared to die on.
And by the way, let me set up a little inside baseball for our audience who's listening right now. We were talking about bringing up this topic, and your colleague, David Kuvert, who I work with here, he is the one who initiated this. Let's have this conversation. And I think he did it to essentially get your ire, to get your blood to boil, correct?
To trigger me.
Yes.
100%. He did, because I'm a Mac guy.
Yes.
I may be, unfortunately, for my sins, talking to you on a Windows machine right now, but that is a cross that I have to bear. I make no bones about that.
So really, a lot of this show is this segment is you and your colleague needling each other.
It's, to be honest, it's not even me and my colleague. It's actually, it's a lot to do with me and my CEO, who is very much of that opinion, which is that Macs are not good, and toy computers and everything else, and me, who has used a Mac.
Oh, really? So it's really your CEO and you going at it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I've been saying for many years that Macs.
So hold on, what would he say? Because we've had him on, this is Danny Jenkins.
Yes.
We've had him on the show many times before.
He would say many wrong things.
Okay.
On this particular subject.
I want to hear a counterpoint between you, Rob, and the Danny Jenkins who's not here.
Yes.
What would he be saying? So I'm going to set you up. This is what Danny Jenkins would say out of Alan's voice, not what Rob would say. What would Danny say?
So what the conversation would be, Rob would say, Macs are more secure than Windows. They are inherently more secure than Windows. They are designed better.
This is what you're saying.
This is what I'm saying. And Danny would say, no, they are not. Now.
And what's his rationale?
His rationale is he just doesn't know any better. He doesn't use them. He doesn't. It's one small little area that it is not his area of expertise.
We are going to make sure Danny hears this.
Oh, yeah, I know. He probably will. He probably will. Now, what I was going to say, though, David, is that in some ways, and sometimes Danny does have a point. So I was, for example, we do demonstrations with rubber duckies. And one of the things that I made the point about is with a rubber ducky, when you plug it into a Windows machine, PowerShell opens, exfiltrates your data, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you plug a rubber ducky into a Mac, you get about 3 or 4 different prompts basically saying, hey, something is connected. Do you want to allow it to connect? Oh, it's a keyboard. What kind of a keyboard it is? And so on and so forth. So there's layers of protection built into the operating system that just don't exist on Windows. That being said, we did a webinar, and I think it's probably knocking around on YouTube somewhere, where basically they used a vulnerability in the Bluetooth stack on Mac OS and set up a reverse shell. When I tried to connect a pair of headphones that they gave me, thinking it was a very nice gift, it was actually a trick to basically get connected to my Mac and set up a reverse shell and exfiltrate data that way. So from that perspective, there are some instances and occasions where Mac OS is indeed not as secure as Windows. That was a vulnerability, by the way, that Apple did accept and fixed without saying anything. But all of that being said, I still maintain that Macs are more secure than Windows.
Okay. And is there any more argument that could be put forth to convince Danny?
There are none so blind as those who will not see, David.
And that's what you're saying your CEO believes he just won't accept it?
In this one small little circumstance, he doesn't like. Look, he's not a Mac guy. He's not a Mac guy.
I'm not a Mac guy either, but it's not because of...
We all have our crosses to bear, and that is Danny's cross to bear. He chooses to inflict Windows upon himself, not only in work, but also outside of work. I mean, I can't think of anything more horrible, really. That, like, I mean, look, I
use a Windows machine.
Yeah, I know, and I have to use a Windows machine. But
so, is it like torture when you're using a Windows machine?
It's yes, pretty much.
It is torture.
I will say this to you, David. My saddest day ever, and this is going to sound really bad because it just coincided with when I started working for ThreatLocker, but it wasn't when I started working for ThreatLocker. That was great. But when I did start working with ThreatLocker, I had a magnificent Mac. I had an iMac Pro sitting on my desk at home, which was just the most amazing machine. This is like 5.5, 6 years ago. It was unbelievably spec'd, incredibly fast. I could do everything on it. And I said to Danny, I'm going to use this for work now. Is that okay? And he said no, because we don't have a Mac agent. So the saddest day of my life was when I was told that my magnificent Mac at home, I could not use it for work. The happiest day of my working life, and again, I'm being slightly facetious here, but the happiest day of my working for ThreatLocker life was when we had a Mac agent. So basically, I could use my Mac for work stuff again. So that is how strongly I feel about my preference for using one rather than the other.
I believe there are other Mac users who believe the same as you do, because Mac users are fanatical.
Because they're right, David.
So all Mac users are right and all Windows users are wrong?
Now you're putting words in my mouth, but yes.
What's broken about cybersecurity hiring?
Quote, there is no talent shortage. There's an imagination shortage in how we identify talent, end quote. That's Brett Conlon of American Century Investments on LinkedIn, arguing that the alphabet soup of titles and certs prove test-taking ability rather than competence. Asking for credentials just screens out the curious, hungry people who can solve problems they've never seen before. But how do we implement this insight? So job listings filter on acronyms. Imagination doesn't fit a Boolean search on job search boards. So Eddie, how do we write a job listing that filters for imagination? Can't you just blatantly ask in a job application, answer this question? I mean, I've done this and it truly does work wonders, filtering out hundreds of candidates that don't bother to read or aren't truly interested in the job. I mean, essentially, I hear it all the time from security professionals. They want to hire problem solvers. So how do you, I'm talking like very first stage, like submitting the job application and the resume, how do you filter, I only want to see the problem solvers? What do we do at that very first stage?
I think you have to have a good relationship with your HR team. There are some things that have to be listed in the job description for legal reasons, and we get that. Which brings in the plethora of alphabets, right? That's going to be like, okay, it's coming in. We know it's coming in. The hard part here is they can't all come directly to you. You do need a screening process. You need something to filter noise. But you can always, and I think every technologist knows how to do this to a degree. We all know how to leverage Easter eggs. And if you can put an Easter egg in a resume or a job description saying, hey, if somebody picks up on this cue, put them to the top of the list. And if you can put something like that in your job description, you know off the back, someone not only read the whole job description, and maybe they understood a little bit of what I was trying to get at as far as creative thinking, because you're going to hide something into that job description that may or may not be relevant to HR, but would be absolutely relevant to the position and to that team. So you get some flexibility in writing the job description. There are the legal mandates that's going to get you all the alphabets, but you get a chance to put something in there. And if you can put something creative, and if you can put something that's going to help you get something to the top of the list, by all means, try something like that.
I will tell you don't even have to be that sneaky about it, Eddie. What we do is we literally have a section titled How to Apply, and we ask simple questions like, go to our site, tell us what you think of it. Or we had one with, tell us a story, like I was hiring a customer relations manager, tells us a story of how you delivered, A+ service. Simple things. And they were under a very bolded section, not an Easter egg, a very bolded section said how to apply. Our last position, we hired 350 resumes, only 18 people followed the directions.
Exactly. And Easter eggs don't have to be complex.
Yeah.
They can be something as simple as visible as that, as
Yeah. Well, so
draw a picture and send me a picture.
Anything from an Easter egg to a clear title, do this. Rob, you want the people who are the problem solvers at the very beginning, just at the job. And I know, by the way, at hiring, you have a very sort of specific process of how you hire at ThreatLocker, because you have very much an employee brand. So how do you, at the early stages, find that?
Well, I mean, first of all, to agree with the poster, there is no talent shortage, and there very much is an imagination shortage. I mean, I can give you some examples, practical examples of some of the best hires we made, and they've come from places anywhere but cybersecurity. There is no list of names or numbers or letters, rather, after their names. They're just people who are hungry, who are willing, who work hard, who learn, who listen, and finding those people very much is our sweet spot. It's not necessarily about, I mean, you can train them up once you've got them in. If it's somebody who's willing to learn, if somebody's got that attitude, that get up and go-ness, you can train them to whatever you want to train them or need to train them to be.
Right. But is there some way that we can discover at the earliest stages, at that application job?
It's really simple. I mean, as both of you alluded to, it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, you could ask some of the most basic questions in the world and it will filter out 90% of the garbage. I mean,
right, because people don't read the questions.
Absolutely. Well, not even that. I mean, one of our favorite questions to ask people when they come in for interviews is tell us a little bit about the company. And if they can't give us more than one or two lines about what ThreatLocker is and where we've come from and what we do, I mean, it's literally just, well, listen, thanks and appreciate your time and see you later, because they made no effort. They haven't tried to learn anything. So you can filter people like that out pretty quickly. I mean, we get any number of CVs thrown at us. And again, it is tricky and it is difficult. And the other problem now, of course, is with our friend AI and the amount of AI-generated CVs and work experience. And I mean, it's something that's incredibly frustrating for me, is going through 10 CVs and they all basically look exactly the same. They all increase productivity by X amount. And you're like, well, how did you calculate that? Where did that number come from? But no, it's just because an AI thinks that this is what a application or a job application for X should be.
By the way, job seekers could also use AI in the reverse way of saying, look at this job application. Is there any specific task I should do that this job application is asking for? And you wouldn't even need to read it. It would read it for you and tell you what to do.
Yeah, but again, look, as with many things, once you scratch the surface and have a conversation with somebody, then it becomes pretty apparent that
what they do and don't know.
Yeah, but how you filter that out of the very early stage? I mean, look, we're really lucky. We've got an amazing TA team at ThreatLocker, and they basically filter through all the junk and the noise and everything else for us. So thankfully, the number of applicants that make it as far as myself and my team that aren't what we're looking for tends to be relatively small.
So the answer is hire a really good talent acquisition team, and that'll solve your problem.
Definitely helps.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the very end of the show. I want to thank you, Rob, and I want to thank you, Eddie, as well. This was a great episode, very entertaining, and I'm sure there'll be more debates about which is better and safer with regards to Mac and Windows.
They're the same.
I want to thank your company, Rob, and that would be ThreatLocker. Remember, go to threatlocker.com/CISO, add the /CISO, easy way to let them know that you heard about them from us. And they are solving big problems with really simple solutions. I'll put it that way. These are big issues that we're all facing, and you should see how ThreatLocker is handling it. And we're very appreciative that you continue to support us, Rob, and we continue to support you as well. Any last words? I know you're always hiring over there. You're looking for creative people. The talent acquisition people would love to talk to you if you know something about ThreatLocker.
Yeah, well, yes. Well, speaking of talent, yes, we are, as you correctly alluded to, always hiring. So threatlocker.com/careers and check out what we got going on right now. You've also LinkedIn as well. I think a lot of them get posted on LinkedIn too. So if anyone's interested and fancies living in sunny Orlando, they should definitely look us up and check us out.
Yes. Very rarely you do remote work, so if you want to come or you currently live in Orlando, that is the place where ThreatLocker is. And you're chronically growing, which I'm always impressed by.
Chronically growing.
Aren't you? Isn't ThreatLocker always growing?
Is chronically a word that you would use to describe growing?
It's a good...
Constantly?
Constantly.
Yeah, I don't know if we're chronically, because...
I would say constantly.
Definitely. Yeah, okay.
They are always growing. Chronically may have been the bad choice of words there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But yes, absolutely. Check us out. LinkedIn, check us out. Threatlocker.com/careers. We will identify whether you are a talent or not and act accordingly.
You could be a talent, just not appropriate necessarily for ThreatLocker. But they are looking, if you have talent, they definitely want to talk to you.
Indeed.
And Eddie, I believe you're hiring also at Frost Bank, correct?
We are always hiring. Yes, please visit our careers page.
Just like ThreatLocker.
We are chronically hiring.
Chronically hiring.
Okay, yeah, well, I do have a list of notes here on my phone, and I'm now going to add to that list of notes, chronically hiring.
Yes. You should have a doctor check that out, by the way.
Yes, it sounds painful. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, you don't want that to get to stage 2 or 3. All right. Thank you, everybody. We greatly appreciate your contributions. We need more What's Worse scenarios and listening to the CISO Series podcast.
That wraps up another episode. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do. We have lots more shows on our website, CISOseries.com. Please join us on Fridays for our live shows, Super Cyber Friday, our virtual meetup, and Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. This show thrives on your input. Go to the Participate menu on our site for plenty of ways to get involved, including recording a question or a comment for the show. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, contact David Spark directly at david@cisoseries.com. Thank you for listening to the CISO Series podcast.